Theresa Bailey is the founder and CEO of Starfish Synergies, an expert facilitator. She holds, wait for this, you guys, you're gonna love this. If you've probably already met her and chatted with her today. She holds the exclusive North American license with Hasbro to conduct Play-Doh Power Solutions corporate training, which she developed with a graduate degree in community psychology and over 2 decades of bringing people together through hundreds of workshops, community events, and conferences. She knows how to help people knock down barriers quickly, authentically, and strategically. And you're gonna want her prize pack, because she's giving away not only her signed book, but a Play-Doh pack for one of you to go home with. So please welcome to the stage, Theresa Bailey.
One of the first things we learn about facilitation is that you have to learn to be flexible. So we are going to be flexible today. And I have a bunch of slides, but I'm not really sure which ones I'm going to show you because I've been taking notes the whole time, and I kind of want to talk about some other stuff too. So we are going to talk about how we're wired to connect and fast-tracking meaningful connection. So I want to know how many people here came hoping to meet someone that could maybe help them in their business, maybe a new client. I'm assuming everyone came here with one of those right. And some people didn't show up who want to do that too. So for those of you here, how comfortable is this a comfortable thing for you, or is this, yeah? And for people who aren't here, probably it's not, right? But what if your next big break or opportunity or experience was just one connection to a connection away? So what if the connections that are in the room know someone you need to know? What if your next big break is coming from that place? So we know that some people aren't comfortable coming out into space to have these conversations with people or to connect. Are there people on the other end of the spectrum who, especially in a room of entrepreneurs, business owners, who maybe are what you might call hyper-independent and like to do everything on their own? Anyone? Anyone like to do everything on their own? So the impact that COVID, the pandemic had, who? Did you have both arms up?
She made me.
Both arms up. Exactly. So one of the impacts that I've seen that has happened over the last 5 years in the space that we don't like to talk about anymore is that a lot of us who are already hyper-independent became even more hyper-independent because we had to learn how to be on our own and by ourselves. We got really good at it, and now it's hard to be back in the world. And I was just talking to someone from Ottawa who was saying that's even more so the case in Ottawa. I don't know how to explain it, but Ottawa is like nobody wants to go back to anything in person. So there are lots of us who are hyper-independent, especially in this government town. I didn't say that. Okay, we are wired to connect. But some of us are uncomfortable doing it. And I don't mean this figuratively. We are literally wired to connect. We are wired to be social people. The survival of our species has depended on human connection. So why does this matter to me? And why should it matter to you? I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. Is this the before the badass story? Before I was bad? Back when I was good? Way long ago, many moons ago, I grew up in a small town in rural Ontario. Small town called Madoc, for anyone who knows Madoc. Yeah. A town of 1,350 people where most people looked like me, and I had to leave that place to go to school. Right? That's what you have to do. It's a rite of passage. I wanted to be a sports psychologist, and I went away to the University of Ottawa wanting to do that. And as in my 4th year, my honors advisor suggested that I start volunteering in order to become part of my community, but also to help me get into graduate school to be a sports psychologist. So I did that. I joined the Canadian Mental Health Association in Ottawa, started doing what was called the Consumer Preference Survey. I was going into shelters, asking people who were experiencing homelessness with serious and persistent mental health issues how they would like to receive services. So I was asking people, how do you want to get to the doctor? How do you want to talk to a social worker? All of those things. And I did that for a while, and there was this moment where I was talking to a young man who is exactly 2 weeks younger than me. He was on that side of the table, I was here. We had grown up the same, and I had this revelation. Why is he there? Why am I here when we have grown up the exact same? So my dreams of being a sports psychologist went out the window, and I ended up trying to understand what helps communities and people thrive. So I did a master's in community psychology. I went back to Ottawa to do my thesis in the Young Women's Emergency Shelter to try to understand what helps young women thrive, what helps some people do well when they left the shelter compared to other people. And there were lots of things that we looked at. Back then we talked about risk and protective factors. Now we talk about resilience. But there was one thing in particular that seemed to be the most important. Can anyone guess what it was? Connection. It was being connected to at least one person had the most impact, because when you're connected to that one person, you're connected to all the people that they know. So that's where I put my heart and soul into studying those things. What helps communities, what helps people do well in the communities, what helps communities bring in vulnerable people to help them do better. All of these things apply to us in business as well. So from that time, over the next 10, 15, 20 years, I end up going into private consulting in 2009. Things are going well. End up on my own in 2016 with 3 kids and a mortgage. Things still going well until fateful day in March. Over 3 days in March, cancel, cancel, cancel. Everything I was doing like this was gone. 0 income, 3 kids, mortgage. No income. What do you do? I thought, what do I need and what do other people need? I put together a course called Tools for a Resilient Workforce, which I delivered mostly to the federal government because they had to, I guess, change offices anyhow. So I delivered it a lot to them. And then I did, speaking of that one post that could be mentioned, or noticed and taking risks, I did one LinkedIn post that was noticed by the Vice President of Marketing, Hasbro Canada, who reached out to me to do a workshop with his marketing team. The caveat was he asked me to incorporate Play-Doh into that workshop. I had never done that before, but he asked me to do it. So I did, and I did it online because we had to. VP of Global Brand and Global HR were there. It went so well, they asked me to develop more courses and put together a business case, and out of that, I was able to negotiate the North American exclusive license to do corporate training with Play-Doh. And so my pitch is always, I train adults with Play-Doh, and they go, what? And I go, Play-Doh. So the important thing is that connection who reached out to me saw something on LinkedIn. I hadn't seen that guy for over 20 years. He's someone I went to high school with. And he just happened to see the post on LinkedIn. So we'll come back to that. So through work and play, community and connection, which has formed the foundation of everything I do, ends up being the work that I do in Play-Doh Power Solutions. There is nothing that brings people together more than playing and taking you back to childhood. It is all about connection. At the same time, when I was a young hockey mom, over a decade, almost 2 decades ago, I realized there was no space for women in hockey. Mothers were not listened to, no one cared, we were kind of, and I have a background in community psychology, so I thought, can I develop a community of hockey moms in this social media thing that I don't even really understand? So in 2009, I also founded a Facebook group called Canadian Hockey Moms. We're now 50,000 strong. So at the same time that I was putting together the license with Play-Doh Power Solutions, I was also negotiating a contract with HarperCollins to write a book. Where did that connection come from? A guy that I met doing a special 10 years prior on the Hockey Mom book. We stayed in touch. Connections to connections. He thought, you're going to write a book? Yeah, how about I get in touch with my person who's on CTV Sports, and we'll put you in touch with our editor, so it's a connection to a connection away. So both of those things happened within 3 weeks of December 2020. So today I want to talk about how connection matters to our physiological well-being, but remind you that your next big break is one connection to a connection away. We are literally wired to connect. And I want to talk about the longest study on adult development in the world. It's over 80 years old. Started on men. They look at women too. Imagine the concept. But they think about success and quality of life over the long term, about how we have to get along with each other to be successful at the end of life, but also that relationships and connections in community are the most important thing to quality of life. So over 80 years of study, connection is most important. And after 80 years, it's been proven that embracing community helps us live longer and have better quality of life. That is the foundation of the 2 years of graduate school I did, where we also never really came up with a definition of community because it changes all the time. This is a community, right? Has anyone heard about the epidemic of loneliness and isolation, right? Got so bad that in the US Surgeon General put together an advisory committee on the healing effects of social connection. They studied all things because they realized that loneliness and isolation were really impacting people. One of the most startling findings was that the lack of social connection is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's mind-blowing, right? So data across 148 studies suggests that social connection increases the odds of survival by 50%. So Wendy, when you were telling that story earlier about standing at the railing and wondering if anyone would miss you, that stuff really matters. Being connected to people really matters. It's what saves people. And if we can look at connection as an integral part of what we do and how we interact with each other, not just for ourselves and our own health, in our businesses too, but for the people that we're working with and supporting, it makes a massive difference. So what are we going to do about it? Anyone familiar with the weak ties theory? Weak ties? Okay. The weak ties theory talks about how interpersonal ties are information carrying connections. So when I say that the next big break could be a connection to a connection away, we're talking about this stuff. And how in a room, if you're close to the people that know you best, or acquaintances in other places, the acquaintances are more likely to be able to help you out and get you to new places than the people who are immediate. Why? Because they all know the same stuff as you. The people you're with all the time, they all have the same information. They've already given you everything you know, right? So everyone in this room has a network that I don't have and has connections to people that I don't know. And the same, I can think of a bunch of networks that I have been able to benefit from, right? That could probably benefit other people. So acquaintances are really important. Anyone on TikTok know Keith Lee? He's so fantastic. I kind of lost him for a bit, but I've seen him a bit lately. So Keith Lee, during that time, in Las Vegas, $7 in his bank account or something like that. And he starts reviewing restaurants, doing food reviews. And people like it. So he starts traveling to different restaurants. He must have saved, I don't know, how many restaurants. Because he would do a review and people would be lined up out the door for the next week. Weak tie. He didn't know them. They didn't know him. Weak tie. Anyone in Ottawa during Ice Storm 1998? Were you there, around? Do you remember it?
At school during the time.
Right. Yeah, so I was downtown too, not necessarily totally impacted, but people out in the rural areas were. It was not the families and immediate neighbors that helped people save their livestock. It was people from all over the place who were bringing generators and helping unthaw water so that the horses and cows and pigs were not dying because they didn't have water. It was weak ties. And in my own community, there was a family of 5, a mother and a father and 3 smaller children. House fire, father dies in the house fire. It wasn't the immediate people around them that rebuilt that house for free. They didn't have insurance. It was the community. Weak ties all did that. That is the power of them. So you can think about, when was a time that weak ties have helped you? Has there been a time when it has been important for you? So I'm going to give you my top 6 tips for connecting and making it count. And this is after doing 1,000, I'm not kidding, 1,000 workshops with thousands and thousands of people and seeing what makes a difference. Don't be afraid to make the first move. Anyone, I put a B, anyone familiar with a particular dating app where there is a B? There is a dating app that is around a B where women have to make the first move. When you get used to making the first move, it no longer bothers you to make the first move. It requires practice. You have to be comfortable having a conversation, striking up a conversation in the food line or wherever it is. You have to be comfortable doing that in the most random place because you never know what could happen. I also think you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And getting up on stage for some people is uncomfortable, but people will know you if you do. Do you think I knew what I was doing with Play-Doh that first workshop? Zero idea what I was doing. That was a total wing in it, you know? You have to take risks. A risk that I took that came out of a weak tie for me to end up in the Trade Accelerator program, the TAP program. Anyone familiar with that? You should ask someone who knows about it. You all should ask someone who knows about it. And I see who, yeah, you had your hand up, right? End up there, walk into the room in the World Trade Center, Toronto, with all these business owners, women business owners who were so much more accomplished than me in my brain, but I did it. And then you had to hand in an export plan. You're developing an export plan for your services. Didn't even know that was possible. Scary. Didn't want to hand it in. Got best in class, and then last year in July, just won best export plan in the country. I don't even know how that happened. I didn't know I was signing up for that, but I did it because I walked into that room that was terrifying, right? And the doors that opens makes a huge difference. Show up and keep showing up. I didn't become I think I'm a great facilitator, I will own that, by doing 2 workshops. I did it over time, and I have a friend, a colleague who became a friend said, Theresa, you just keep showing up. And I'm like, I don't know that I have a choice. But yeah, you just keep showing up, keep doing it, keep reaching out to people, keep networking, keep finding people. If you go to a conference, follow up on the app, follow up with people here. Show up and keep showing up and be prepared when you do. Play the long game. I don't expect your next big break to come after 20 some years like it did with me and the guy from Hasbro, or even a decade like it did for me and the guy with the book, but it does take a while. And some of the biggest deals that happen require you to negotiate for a while and make sure that you know who each other are. So play the long game, but also the 4B, it's not actually a game. Lead from the heart. If you're authentic in your conversations and you get genuinely curious about people and what problem they're trying to solve in the world, and then you're thinking about what connection you can make for them, that is very powerful. By the way, the guy who found me on LinkedIn, the Hasbro marketing person, he remembered me because I was nice to him in high school in a time that was really hard in his life. And he told me that later. He said, you were always so nice to everybody. And I was thinking, yeah, that's sort of, where I lead from. But he remembered that. So show up over time and do lead from the heart. And it's not a game, but you have to be willing to put in time to get to know people and let them know who you are. There's a fortune in follow-up. I actually kind of don't like that because who was speaking? Money blocks, right? That's my money block. That feels uncomfortable. But what I will say is that the woman who taught me that sold her business for $27 million. I think it's valid. But also when I was gifted my grandmother's journal where she kept track of all of the important things in all of the community's lives. Birthdays, children's birthdays, all those important things. My grandma was a pillar in the community. She didn't do it because she was trying to make a sale. She did it because she cared about people. So there's a fortune in follow-up, but do it for the right reason because you actually care about people. Be a great connector is number 6. I will connect everybody to anyone if I can think of it. I try to be a great connector. But you have to reciprocate. I have someone who I brought her tens of thousands of dollars of business. I asked her for one introduction for a podcast, and she has never done it, right? And I'm not sure why, but she hasn't. Be a great connector. Be a super connector. Okay. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to post on the Facebook page a question. You're going to ask a question in that post of something that you need, bookkeeper, whatever, legal advice, and then the rest of you are going to respond to that, try to help one person and ask your own question. And we become a group of super connectors. And that's what we're going to do. It looks like this. I got 20 seconds left. That's what I want to show you. Please continue to connect. It is the power behind all of us. We are all connected. So, thank you.
Zing. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.